Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live, usually Thursdays at 6 p.m. Sometimes that changes due to scheduling conflicts. You can catch us live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. And if you're checking us out live, and you have a question or comment, do send it all in. I love that interaction with the fans. I think it makes the show that much better. If you missed the live version, you can always catch us archived on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or you can download it as a podcast now. So love that extra reach. And if you like the content at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's the main podcast, Monday evening, hosted by Shaun Doyle, our founder, and always lots of interesting things there. And the other show is the On-Feck Circle, which is Tuesdays at 6 p.m., hosted by Steve Feck, who has very unique viewpoints, always worth a listen to. So if you haven't been tuning in, you should definitely do that. On-Feck Circle, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. And hello, Blue Jays fans. Happy Thursday evening. And I don't know about you, but for me, it's a very happy Thursday evening. I haven't been here in a while. I've missed doing the show. Glad I have the opportunity to do it today. And last time I was on was actually, I believe, April the 31st. So this is it so far for September, and what a month it's been. But I will get to that in a bit. Leading off, as always, is transactions. So basically all the comings and goings that have happened this month with our Toronto Blue Jays. So as we were talking about last time, the Blue Jays had reclaimed Bradley Zimmer, but they had to wait to activate him, and they made use of the 72 hours that he had to report, and they added him as rosters expanded on September the 1st. So welcome back to Bradley Zimmer. And we all know what his main strengths are: speed and defense, pinch running, playing defense in center field when the Jays have a lead, which they've had a fair bit of leads lately. And again, lots of positive things to talk about. So can't wait to get to that. But in the meantime, so Zimmer is back as well. When rosters expanded from 26 to 28, you were allowed one extra pitcher, and the Blue Jays recalled Casey Lawrence. He was up with the team for a little bit, didn't stay up that long, and actually this time around, he didn't even pitch for the Jays. I guess they had him around his insurance, or we don't really know what's going to happen with the rest of the pitching staff. But I feel for Casey Lawrence. He's pitched pretty well at AAA. I don't know if talent-wise, if he'll end up being like a quad A player. But he's struggled when he's been up with the Blue Jays, and it's too bad. I mean, the Jays could definitely use some reasonable depth as far as the starting rotation, but so far it hasn't really seemed to have been Casey Lawrence. So now he's back with AAA. And Nate Pearson, he actually began a rehab stint. So he pitched in Dunedin, and now he's up with the AAA Buffalo Bisons. He's pitching pretty well, actually. So every time I see news on his outings, he seems to be doing fairly well down there. I don't really know if he's going to be an option for the Jays this year, if they're waiting to see something more for him, more from him, or what their plan is. But Jays fans know all about Pearson's talent. He's got considerable upside when he can stay healthy. So will this be the year? Although the year is definitely winding down in terms of the regular season, but we'll see. Stay tuned and keep an eye on how he's doing, and maybe we will see him this year, and if not, fingers crossed for next year. Zach Pup. So this is kind of an interesting rule. The Blue Jays in September have actually played 2 doubleheaders. Hopefully that's it for doubleheaders. I think it should be. But they played a doubleheader on September the 5th with against the Baltimore Orioles, and then one up September the 13th against the Tampa Bay Rays. So, excuse me, for a doubleheader, you're allowed to add one player to the roster. So a 29th man here in September when rosters have expanded to 28. Now, interesting enough, an interesting sort of wrinkle. So Zach Pop had previously been optioned to the minor league. When a position player is optioned, he has to stay down for 10 days unless he's taking the roster spot of someone who is on the IL. If it's a pitcher, however, they have to stay down for 15 days. Listeners, I don't know how you feel about that two sets of rules. Myself, I'm not crazy about it. I think 10 days should be enough. I mean, I guess the idea is if it's a starting pitcher, that they want it to be consequential. So if it was 10 days, you could kind of juggle your rotation so that he only really had to miss one start, I guess. Anyway, myself, I'd be happy if it was 10 days across the board, but it's not for pitchers. It's 15 days. So that's goes for if they're on the IL or if they're optioned. However, an exception to that rule is they are allowed to be the 29th man for a doubleheader. So Zach Pop was called up for the doubleheader on September the 5th, and then he was sent back down because they had no choice, and now he's back up with the Jays. So I I have hopes for him for the future. He has been okay. He hasn't been 100%, but I mean, really, who has been? More often than not, he's been pretty good for the Jays, I would say. Modern day baseball people, whether it's people who are employed by baseball as players, as managers, as front offices, or even the fans, seem to have a strong affinity for pitchers who get a lot of strikeouts. Zach Pop has got the stuff. He throws hard. He just, to this point in his career, has not been a huge strikeout pitcher, and maybe they consider that to be a huge knock against him. But I mean, the Jays have got him in their organization for a few years. The fact that he's Canadian doesn't hurt, but one way or another, we want guys who can help the Jays win games, and I'm really hopeful that that can be Zach Pop, whether that's now or in the future or whatever that is. And excuse me just a moment. Okay, so what else is going on? Julian Merriweather. He was called back up. He played in 6 games actually for the Jays in September. He was on a rehab stand a while ago, looked quite good playing for the Buffalo Bisons. And so these were Merriweather's runs allowed with the Toronto Blue Jays in September of 2022. 1-0-0 again, 1-0-5. Yeah, I don't know. He was optioned the day after giving up those 5 runs, and I'm not really sure what the Blue Jays front office was thinking there. Did they just want a fresh arm, or have they kind of soured on Merriweather after the 5-run implosion? Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, he's an enigma because everybody knows about his talents, and he seems to have the stuff that he could be a really good pitcher. I don't know what it is. He just can't seem to put it together, and he's very inconsistent. So back to the minors he is. Now, when they activated Merriweather, he had actually been on the 60-day injured list, which meant that they had to get him back on the 40-man roster. And in order to do that, they DFA'd catcher Zach Collins. He had actually been optioned to the AAA Buffalo Bisons. In any case, clearly the Blue Jays see Alejandro Kirk, Danny Jansen, and Gabriel Moreno as the top 3 catchers in their system right now. So they deemed Collins to be expendable, and actually he was claimed by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, Zach, all the best to you out there. And yeah, speaking of the Pirates, if you were watching that game, or maybe some of you were there in person, I was there in person as well with my husband. and had an amazing time. Got to see our Blue Jays sweep a team that doesn't have a great overall record. And yeah, it was just an amazing trip. So cross one more off the bucket list. Also got to meet Steve Feck in person, and he was kind enough to show us around, help guide us through Pittsburgh a bit. So that was very kind and much appreciated. Anyway, I digress there. So yes, Zach Collins was DFA'd. They actually called Gabriel Moreno back up. Now he's been with the Jays. He's actually only gotten into two games. He started one as catcher, and then he came into another one as a pinch runner. And yeah, I mean, for a prospect who has all the talents that Gabriel Moreno has, I mean, he has yet to have that success in MLB, but that's not uncommon. Many prospects, once they come up, they take some time to adjust and live up to their potential. This time around, he hasn't really got a lot of playing time. It's understandable. I mean, the Blue Jays are in a playoff race. If they were a rebuilding team, it would probably be a different story. But looking forward to seeing him get into some action whenever that might be. Mitch White, he unfortunately had a few bad starts in a row. Was optioned to AAA, and then the same thing as with Zach Pop. White was brought back to the Jays for the doubleheader on September the 13th, and he pitched 6 innings in one game in the first game after an opener. So he didn't start. There was an opener that pitched 1 inning, and then he pitched the next 6, and he actually didn't do badly for someone who has struggled, for someone who they look at as maybe a fifth starter. If he can find some consistency, he only gave up the 3 runs in 6 innings, so that's somewhat promising. Fingers crossed that he can figure something out. They had to send him back to AAA, but now he is apparently back with the Toronto Blue Jays. Hasn't been activated yet, but I think we can expect it within the next 1 to 2 days or so. Teoscar Hernandez was away from the team briefly because he and his wife had their third child, and it's a boy. In fact, apparently they're all boys. So to Teoscar and his family, all of you, congratulations. And Hernandez's wife and 3 boys. Mrs. Hernandez, good luck to you. Seriously, no, happy for them and glad to have Hernandez back. Otto Lopez has been up and down again. I can understand why he hasn't been used more with the Blue Jays because he's a raw rookie. They're in a pennant race. I mean, it seems to me like he's got some skills, and I would love to see the Blue Jays clinch a playoff spot and playoff position with at least a few days to go, and then maybe he could get some regular playing time. Let the regulars rest a bit and take a look at guys like Moreno and Lopez and maybe Mitch White and just see what they can do. So something I have my fingers crossed for. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., unfortunately, has been on the injured list with a left hamstring strain. So that actually happened during a game. He hit the ball. He was running to first, and then you could just see it happen there where he was in pain and unfortunately had to go on the injured list. So he's already eligible to come back. They actually sent him to the training complex, which is in Florida, and now the Blue Jays are in Florida. They start a series today against Tampa Bay, so there's the opportunity for them to meet up. Again, he hasn't been activated yet. Hopefully he's working his way back into game shape and being able to come back soon, because that would be really great, hopefully. Um, Foster Griffin. So he's a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher that the Blue Jays got earlier this season from the Kansas City Royals. He's been called up to the Blue Jays, and honestly, this for me is a bit of a head scratcher. I know Tim Meza is more or less the only left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. Yes, I know Yusei Kikuchi is a left-hander, I don't really think of him as a bullpen pitcher, even though he's not in the rotation right now. I think of him as a starter who has struggled and they have to do something for him, so he's in the bullpen right now. I mean, they had Matt Gage up with the team earlier this year, and he did fairly well. So I have no idea why Foster Griffin is getting the nod over Matt Gage. But so Griffin, when he's pitched this year in AAA, he hasn't been too bad. He has an ERA of 2.01. In the major leagues, it's another story. So again, while he has yet to pitch for the Blue Jays, he did get into 5 games for the Kansas City Royals this year prior to being traded. And the results weren't pretty. He had an ERA of 12.46. So maybe I'm missing something. I hope that he can do better in the majors this time around, but don't really get it. And then another, although there's no official transaction, and hopefully there won't be, Santiago Espinal was actually pulled out of yesterday's game with left side discomfort, and I actually read that had done an MRI on him. We're waiting for the results, so that's a bit nerve-wracking. We don't want to lose him for any length of time there. And yeah, that's a fair bit of comings and goings for the month of September so far. And just a break before I get into the heart of the order. Okay, then. So it's been an incredible month of September so far. The days have gotten hot. I think they've been hot and cold all season. And they finally have heated up at pretty much the right time. So they currently sit as they have a record of 84-65. They're currently second place in the AL East, 6.5 games out of the first place New York Yankees. And with 13 regular season games left to play, and they're holding the first wild card. They are 6.5 games up on Baltimore, which is the closest team to the wild card that is not currently holding a playoff spot. So obviously they want to stay ahead of them. They want to, at minimum, clinch a playoff spot and hopefully have the home field advantage for that. The magic number in order to clinch any playoff spot is 8. So any combination of Blue Jays wins and Orioles losses that total 8 means that they're in. And I can't wait. It feels so close, and this is going to happen. I believe with everything in me. They came so close last year, only to miss out, and they went out and got reinforcements, and this is going to be the year at start of something where they get back and and do really well. I think it's going to be exciting for Blue Jays fans. So yes, in September so far they're 14-6. And they have 4 series left to play in the regular season, and it's all against the division rivals, nobody else. So today they start at the Trop, that matters, of course, where they've had an absolutely terrible record overall from the start when they were there. I think they're 50-something games under 500. Yikes. And then after this weekend, they come home. They play the New York Yankees, then the Boston Red Sox, and then the final series of the regular season is against the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore, rescheduled from what would have been the beginning of the season because of the lockout and the delayed start to the season and all of that there. So, yes, interesting, exciting times. Blue Jays rising to the occasion, 14-6 in September so far. I think I said that already. And rewinding even further, going back to the middle of August, so August 18th, look at the ability to win series. They have won 8 series. They've lost only 1. There was that clunker against the Anaheim Angels, after which many Jays fans that I follow on social media thought their season was over. Well, guess what? It's not over. They're right in the thick of things. They've been in a playoff spot all season. And they tied 1 series. The series that they just finished now in Philadelphia against the Phillies. And I mean, going 500 on the road, it's not so bad. and they were up against another team that right now is in the playoffs. The Phillies are in a wild card spot in the National League. So I mean, when you're playing those better teams, you're not always going to go undefeated. They have their moments too, but I'm not that worried about it. Honestly, I have a really good feeling. I feel like this team has really come together at a good time. The bullpen, unfortunately, that had really settled down and done well, that they've run into a bit of a blip, and I'm hoping that it's only a bump in the road. The ERA for the bullpen in the last 6 games is just over 8. So hopefully now, I mean, considering that, I mean, we've got Julian Merriweather, who's a part of that, giving up 5 runs the other day. And I mean, he's back in AAA. If I had to guess who is and isn't going to be on the playoff roster, I wouldn't be counting on Mr. Merriweather. I think they have other arms that are more reliable and who can get the job done, who can get outs. So yeah, I mean it's a bit of a concern. Jordan Romano's had a couple of blown saves, two in a row actually, which is the first time in his career that that's ever happened. And hopefully we won't see that again for quite some time. Again, these Blue Jays relief pitchers, because since they optioned Mitch White back to AAA, they really haven't had a fifth starter, and to have a bullpen game every 5 days, they get overworked and they get tired. They're human like anybody else, and I just feel like it's a little bit of an overuse, and hopefully again they can kind of rewind it. That's my hope. I'm hoping that the starters can go deep into games. If they're going to reactivate Mitch White, then you know what? I mean, have him pitch behind an opener, but if he can give you 6 innings with only 3 runs, then that's good. Then at least hopefully they will have saved the bullpen on that day to a certain extent. Excuse me just a moment. So yeah, it's been so much fun watching the team, watching them succeed, watching them go out and win series after series after series. Bo Bichette was red hot there for a while there. One American League Player of the Week, very deservingly so. He was pretty much carrying the Jays offense at one point. They just couldn't get him out. And one of the things that I really like is that a lot of different players have taken turns getting hot, having a very good game, being that game's hero, so to speak. Raimel Tapia's had a couple of good games, filling in for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in left field. You had Matt Chapman, whose defense is very solid, whose offense, he definitely has some pop in that bat. Unfortunately, he's been a little bit inconsistent at the plate, but he's had some good games lately. Guerrero's on a hit streak. Not that a lot of people would notice that because the expectations for him are so high that when he hasn't come close to doing what he did last year, even though his overall numbers are very good, that it's to many it feels like a disappointment because he's got that other gear, but he hit a 3-run home run last night. Unfortunately, it was one of those games, and as I said, the bullpen struggled a bit lately, and unfortunately, they couldn't hold the lead that the Jays had. But overall, it's been a really good month, and we've got 4 series left, and they just have to keep going. The Tampa Bay Rays are another team that are holding a wild card spot right now, and actually, as it stands, if the season ended today, the Blue Jays would host the 3-game wild card series here in Toronto at the Rogers Center, and the opponent would be the Rays. So the Rays have been a little bit different this year than the Rays that we're used to. They've kind of struggled on and off. They've also had quite a lot of injuries, but yeah, I mean, they just got swept by the Houston Astros. Thank you, Houston Astros. Huge favor there. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I really think this is a year that overall the Blue Jays can be better than the Tampa Bay Rays. And hopefully on the road they will at least split the series. And I'm fingers crossed that they can at least win the series 3 games to 1. And if they do that, then one thing is, and they will have taken the season series from the Rays. That's important because there's no more tiebreaker games as far as the playoffs are concerned. So no more game 163. They have a zillion or so tiebreaker scenarios, and I believe the number one is the head-to-head record. So if the Jays get that, then even if the two teams finish the regular season with identical records, then it's okay. The Jays still get a home field advantage in the wild card series. So looking forward to that. I think home field will be huge for them. I really want them to get that, to have the home crowd behind them, and and I'm looking forward to the possibility of going to a game or more, and yeah, fingers crossed on that. So almost out of our time together for this week. This brings me to True Blue Jay colored glasses. So here we are, and we're almost at the end of the regular season, and it's not going to be over. They're right where they want to be and need to be, holding a good playoff spot. The division would have been nice for a while there. It looked like maybe it was going to happen, and I mean they gained about 10 games from where they were in relation to the division of the New York Yankees. But finally, the Yankees have started to win some games again. So, as much as it's still a possibility, it looks less and less realistic that the Jays are going to come back and win the AL East. But that's fine. First wild card would be fine. It's, I think, the right combination and the right balance of continuing to play, but hopefully they will have that spot clinched with maybe 2, 3 days left in the regular season, and that would give them some time to rest some of their regular players. We know a lot of the regulars have been dealing with injuries all season, so getting them off their feet for a little while, that could probably only help. And again, the ability to set up the rotation the way that they want. So in a perfect world, if everybody's available, who do you want starting game 1? And I mean, there's a few good options, and it's a good problem to have, that they have starting pitchers that are good, that it isn't just, one that's head and shoulders above the others, and the others are, they've got a few really good options. So whoever they ideally want for that number one game, hopefully they'll be able to utilize him and get everybody working on some good rest and playing here in Toronto, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I really, really want to see them get that first wild card spot. Some people seem to think that they could have an easier time of it if they're actually the third wild card and play on the road against the division winner with the worst record, which right now is the Cleveland Guardians. I don't want to see them playing on the road against Cleveland. I don't see that as an easy series for them at all. The Blue Jays didn't have a good record this year against Cleveland. And I mean, yes, they play in a division that's not all that tough overall, but they can still be a very tough team. They have some really good pitching. They've gotten on a roll. So whoever, assuming that it is them, and I think it will be, who has that playoff spot, whoever faces them, good luck to them, because we're not going to have an easy task ahead of you. But it's finally happening. In 2020, we all know that 2020 was a crazy year with the COVID shortened season, with the Jays not being allowed to play here in Toronto. And yes, technically they made the playoffs in a year when they had 8 teams per league make the playoffs. They were the 8th seed, and they played a very tough Tampa Bay Rays team in Tampa, and quite frankly, they looked overmatched. Then there was last year, they made some improvements, but it just wasn't enough, and they missed getting in by 1 game. This is the year. This is the year that it really gets started, that it's going to be the start of, I think, a good, long, competitive window. The Blue Jays have got some players that are eligible for free agency, a couple this year, a lot after next year. But I trust this front office, this management. They've made some mistakes, but overall, I think they know what they're doing. And whatever needs to be done, they're going to make some good moves, and they're going to keep this team competitive for now, my focus is on 2022, and I want to see them go the distance. We've been waiting for them to have two playoff games here in Toronto, and this is the year that it's going to happen again. I predict a very deep run. They just have to get it together the way they have. And it's going to be great for us fans, and maybe I'll see some of you at some games. I'm so excited. I really can't wait. And on that note, that's all I've got for you this evening, which is good because the game's about to start in a few minutes. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you again next week.